Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday, December 8th. Thanks for being with us. Feeling like a bit of a case of deja vu. Seems like we were just here and here we are again. Before I get started on the briefing, I did want to show you where we're at with the whole setup here. So kicking things off with just the big picture overview, and then we'll zoom in to kind of get a better sense of how things are playing out. But the last several hours we have had precipitation moving in. The pink that you see on your screen there is a bit of a wintry mix. We've had temperatures that are hovering for parts of the Commonwealth right around or even a little bit above that freezing mark this morning. So we started off with even some pure rain, some wintry mix, and then as you notice, as it gets kind of towards the end of that radar loop there, that we have a lot more snow taking over, and that's pretty much where we are now and where the trend is heading. So that was a composite radar of a compilation of all the different radar sites kind of put together in one. This one specifically is just showing the Wakefield radar. So it's not that it's not snowing in the western part of the state. It's just that we can only look at one of the radar sites at a time. So it takes a second to click over, but you can see when we look over at the Blacksburg radar, they are well within the snow and sort of those light purple colors, that's more moderate to even heavy snow falling, especially in the western part of the state. But now it is moved and it is really taken over much of the Commonwealth. Now, the only area that is going to be not seeing too much from this storm is extreme northern Virginia. They may still get a dusting, but when all is said and done, really what we're looking at is a Commonwealth-wide event. Now, there is a pretty distinct line kind of hugging the I-95 corridor right now. That is where the rain is to the east, where it's slightly warmer, and then snow has taken over to the west. Now, I will say that we are expecting temperatures to drop over the next few hours, so those seeing rain should, for the most part, transition over into snowfall, and that has been the trend of what we are seeing. One last look at just current before we get there. Here's a look at temperatures, so you can see that we do still have a number of locations that are at or above freezing. So some of us still seeing a bit of rain, particularly in southeastern Virginia, but that won't last too much longer. So now getting on to our forecast. What are we looking at? Well, there's been a lot of information out there and a lot of changes over the last, I would say, especially 24 hours, but even beyond that. So many winter weather advisories are in effect and even a few winter storm warnings. So I'll just skip that headline slide. That was in the email if you want to go back and reference that was sent out this morning, but I'm going to go over everything that was in that slide in pretty great detail. So all of those shaded in purple, those are the winter weather advisories. That's where the slightly lighter snow accumulations are expected. Purple areas looking at about 1 to 3 inches, and then those in the pink swath from the city of Richmond down to the North Carolina line, east through the Middle Peninsula, and back through central Virginia. So we're talking Farmville, Charlotte County, all the way back to Roanoke. That's the winter storm warning, and those areas are looking at 3 to 5 inches with locally higher amounts possible. So we could be seeing 1 or 2 reports that are close to that 6-inch mark, although that's definitely on the high end. So right through the heart of Virginia, that east-west swath is where we're going to be seeing the highest amounts of snowfall. Now, there is a little bit of uncertainty with our northernmost counties and southeast, just due to a little bit of that rain that could cut down some of our snow totals, especially initially. But signs are pointing to accumulating snowfall even in those areas. So now what are we really looking at for snow totals? Again, mainly along and south of I-64, even though, that's been the messaging for a few days now. Our snow totals have inched a little bit further north, so even areas north of 64 are going to see a few inches, but all the way up to northern Virginia, DC proper, little to nothing up that way, but greatest impacts south of 64. The city of Richmond happens to be right on the cusp in between the 3 to 4 and the 4 to 6 6-inch band. So I would say that Metro Richmond, particularly the city itself, should be seeing right around 4 inches, maybe a little bit higher than that. So our northern suburbs, we're talking Hanover, Henrico, Goochland, northern Powhatan County, and this also stretches back to the Williamsburg area as well. They're in that 3 to 4 inch band, but then when you get down to South Side Richmond, Chesterfield, southern Powhatan, Amelia, Cumberland, Nottoway, down to Dinwiddie in the Tri-Cities area, stretching back to Prince Edward and all the way back through that I-81 corridor, south of, I should say west of Lynchburg and then back to Roanoke, firmly within that 4 to 6 inch band. Now, there have been a few locations that have snuck into that 6 to 8. I think 8 is definitely on the high end of things, but again, a few locations could be sneaking into that 6-inch range. And then even Southwest Virginia, far extreme tip of, say, Lee County, might not see much snowfall at all. So a good part of the Commonwealth is seeing a bigger snowstorm than what we saw on Friday, no doubt. So it is already entered for most of the Commonwealth. We're already seeing it in central Virginia. So we're just waiting for it to arrive really east of 95 and to, the Northern Neck, Middle Peninsula, and Eastern Shore. That's a 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. arrival. Now, I do want to show currents, pulling up just a few of our VDOT cameras to give you a sense of visually what it looks like out there. So the one in the center of your screen, that's on Liberty's campus, so out in Lynchburg, looking pretty snowy. At least for right now, the winner that I could find is I-64 westbound here. This is mile marker 157. This is just west of 522. So that is the snowiest with it looks like lowest visibilities for at least this very moment. So it's going pretty well out there, and we'll see snowfall rates increasing over the next few hours. End times, it's more, now when I say end times, this is completely done, absolutely no more snowflakes falling, but that is to say that most of the accumulations are going to end before these times. So most of the accumulations in the western part of the state are going to be done by about 1 to 2 p.m., with flurries lingering into, 4, maybe as late as 7 p.m., but the accumulation is going to be done early afternoon. The central part of Virginia and Piedmont locations, technically we're looking at a total end time of 7 to 10, but I would say most of the accumulating snowfall is going to be done between 4 to 5 p.m. And then for our eastern locations, it's more of a later evening time frame that we're looking at that snow to end in southeastern Virginia. Snow character has not changed from what we've been messaging for a few days now. It's a really cold event other than the onset where we're seeing a little bit of wintry mix, especially southeastern Virginia, but it's a dry and fluffy snow. And right now it is a little bit wet out there, so it's taking a little bit more to overcome the wet ground and start accumulating. But when it does, it's really going to start adding up fast because it's cold, and especially later this evening, it's going to be very, very cold. For our afternoon, still very white and powdery, that fluffy stuff that when we see some wind gusts this afternoon, we'll also see some reduced visibilities due to blowing and drifting snow. In terms of snowfall rates, right now we're starting to see snowfall rates increase. So we have low to moderate snowfall rates, anywhere from about 1/2 inch up to 1.5 inch. And that is actually pretty good snowfall. It's hard to get, I wouldn't say hard to get a high snowfall rate, but medium range, up to 1.5 inches per hour. That's good snowfall for Virginia. So it's going to fall at a pretty good clip. Kind of shifting a little bit further east toward that second half of the day, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m., still a lot of moderate snow falling throughout the area. So that is when we're going to be seeing a lot of our accumulations, is late morning through about 4 to 5 p.m. I alluded to wind gusts earlier. They're not going to be rising to the level of damage. That's a question that we've had. What do you think about power outages? What do you think about downed trees or power lines? I don't see this. It's not, the snow character is not heavy enough. It's not wet enough to weigh down power lines and that kind of thing. So that's good news. And also these wind gusts, although, you know, pretty strong, it's going to blow around the snow. Certainly it's not enough to knock down power lines or anything like that. So that is also good news. But what it will do is when we see winds out of the north northeast, especially on our north south oriented roads like 95, it's going to be blowing snow right onto the road as folks are driving, you know, if they're driving northbound, especially. So I would really use caution and watch out for any incidents that may happen, especially on our north-south oriented roads, just due to blowing and drifting snow. We will be seeing reduced visibilities, as we already are out there, as a result of the snow. And even when all of the snow is done this evening and overnight, we'll see clearing skies and temperatures are going to plummet. We're looking for a good part of the Commonwealth outside of far western Virginia and the Virginia Beach, you know, Hampton Roads area. Everyone else is going to be in the low teens, possibly even a few single digits. So what this is going to do is, you know, I don't foresee much melting happening today. It's going to be really cloudy and it's just going to be snowing all day, but it's not going to help things any. And anything that's wet right now that may have been kind of melted due to the salting on roads or sidewalks, that kind of thing, it's going to refreeze overnight. So it's going to be a very rough, particularly evening commute, and then again tomorrow morning, even though the snow will be long gone tomorrow morning. Visually, this is just the chart kind of showing us a different flavor, I guess you could say, of the timing. You see the list of cities on the left, and the darker of the colors is just the more intense rates. So you can see right through the heart of the day, late morning through early afternoon, and even into the evening is when we'll see the heaviest rates for our snowfall. That is pretty much it. Unless I have any questions, keep in mind that I do have the ability to take folks off mute, but the best way is to just ask questions in the chat if you have any.